Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com for another edition of Inside the Zone. Blake Sebring of the News Sentinel, Glenn Marini here from Wayne TV. And
who?
I know. I've been busy with basketball, but now we can finally focus on hockey.
You know, I finally get Jessica trained and ready to go, and then you butt back in.
Well, I know. I'm not quite as pretty, but I do love to talk some hockey with you here on these Mondays. It seems crazy because we only have 2 weeks of the regular season left, 6 games for the Komets. Coming off a pretty good week. What did you see this past week in the Komets, Blake, that you really liked out there on the ice?
I like the way they seem to have taken Kaylee Schrock's message or Gary Graham's message or whoever's message about the forwards taking the penalties to heart, because they really cleaned that up this week. That was, to me, that was their biggest glaring need, and they got it cleaned up. And they didn't do it, you know, with celebration or anything. They just tightened it up, and that was nice to see.
And kind of that putting that polish on before the playoffs is something good to see this far out. But also, it seems like special teams are also just little things are really being cleaned up, not just the penalties, but kind of the minor details that you like to see getting ready and getting cleaned up before the postseason.
Yeah, the power play has been really solid the last month or so, too, so that was good to see. You can see that there's more confidence in it. They're getting more relaxed in some of the things that they're doing. The defense has really tightened up probably the last month and a half. The goals against average, the shots against average has come down as well. So they're making things a little bit easier on the goaltenders.
And part of that is having the personnel back, I would imagine. Yeah. James Martin, Joey Leach, even having some of the forwards back that can help out defensively. Taking a look at the roster at this point, the biggest question is Pat Nagel, because everyone wants to know, is he going to go up? I know a lot doesn't, it's not something that Komets fans are really happy about all the time that he moves up. But where do you see him ending up the last month of the or last couple of weeks, but also in the playoffs? I mean, is it even possible to predict what is going to happen with Pat?
You really can't, because if somebody calls, he pretty much has to go. If he doesn't go, well, that might get around to the AHL. This guy didn't want to come up, and then they could blackball him for next year. Well, if this guy's got an attitude, we don't necessarily want him. So he's kind of got to go in some ways. That's why the Komets have 3 goalies, though. They've got that protection.
When you take a look at Michael Tam.
Little ball of muscle.
Yeah, we've talked about, people didn't know what they were missing, I guess, if you're a Komets fan, and you didn't see him really early in the preseason, what he could add. How much of a factor can Michael Tam be throughout the rest of the season for the Komets, and what does he add? I
think he solidified the whole defense in a way, in that he was the missing piece, and now it's allowed Gary to set up pairings, and him and Will or him and Krug, and they can just relax and just play with those guys. And it allows Joey and Drew to be a pairing, and Cody and James to be a pairing, and then you don't have to worry about it. So then the third pairing is more solid because he's there. And that little guy's tough. I mean, he is not very big. He's like 5'10", 205. But I'm thinking it's all muscle the way that people try to bang him, because they always go at him thinking, oh, there's a little guy, I can go pick on him. But they're the ones that keep bouncing back when they hit him. And if they hit him once, it's like, well, look out, don't turn your head the next shift, because you're going to be on your backside.
Having Tam healthy is certainly big. The Komets relatively healthy at this point in the season.
Oh, you just jinxed it.
I know. Because I wanted to lead in and talk about Paul Crowder.
Sure.
Because he's a guy, man, you get him back for the playoffs. We saw him briefly when he came back for a couple games with that high ankle sprain, be productive right off the bat. So with Paul Crowder, where are the Komets at in terms of his injury, and what can we expect throughout the rest of the year?
Well, he's got his boot off, and he started skating today. They had an optional today, and he'll skate tomorrow in practice. And I would imagine he might be back in time for the playoffs. I mean, and that's what they got to decide. Is he going to be able to come back for the playoffs? And if not, then you're going to have to just move on. But I think they think he's going to be back.
How big of an addition is he? Because, like I said, he's a guy that you can plug in immediately.
Sure.
He's got some games under his belt. He's a veteran guy. You don't have to work him in. I mean, it's just like put him out there on the ice, and he's ready to go.
Well, he's a guy who makes everybody else on the ice 20% better because of his passing and his face-offs right off the bat. So you've got the puck. You've got better puck control, and then everybody else relaxes, and they can just play. Now, when he was out there with Perlini and Pistilli, it was a great line. It was as good as a first line by far. Well, now you've got a first line with the money line of Fye, Sidlowski, and Mbach, but the second line's been struggling to score. Well, if you put him out there, suddenly you've got 2 number 1 lines. And that means you can mess around with your third line if you want and develop a checking line for defense to put against the other team's top line. And suddenly everything fits out of one player. Everything is better then. So that's kind of the impact he can have.
You mentioned the money line, which is what I wanted to talk about next, because they've scored 9, I believe, of the K's last 12 goals. They're on fire as a unit. What does it say about this team, and how dangerous does this make this Komets team going forward, knowing that as long as Fye stays down here, Sedlowski stays down here, you've got a line that could give you 3 goals on a given night?
On a given night, but not every night. So don't count on it for every night. That's not fair. Can they win a series by themselves? Possibly. I mean, Aaron Clark and Sid and Mbach did that kind of last year in the first round against Reading. I mean, everybody else played well too. I'm not trying to disparage them, but they were definitely the focal point. The difference is this year, they're the focal point of the opposing team's defense. Last year, you had Auger, Fleming, and Marino, which was the focus of the opposing team's defense. Now, these guys are going to be, so there's going to be more pressure on them. Another reason why you need Crowder to come back healthy and strong to be able to set it up so that there's more guesswork for the opposing defenses. Now, these guys are amazing because they are so creative. They are not just, I'm playing my position, I'm just going down this wing, I'm just going down that wing, and I'm going down the center. Because they are so interchangeable, nobody knows where they're going. Sometimes they don't know where they're going, But because they all do have a hint of where they're going because they played together so long, it works, which is why they were able to create some havoc against Cincinnati on Saturday night.
Do you feel like that is a line that can win you an entire playoff series? I know it comes down to goaltending a lot in the postseason.
Sure.
And we don't talk about offense.
And it comes down to matchups, too.
True. But do you feel like it's a line that can win you a playoff series?
I think it is, but if you count on them to do that, you're really going to make it harder. Because, like I said, last year there was Fleming, Marino, Auger, which was the focus of the opposing defenses. They were the best line. And that allowed Clark, Sedlowski, and Mbach to be freer and go create havoc, okay? This year they're going to get the focus of the defense. That's why you've got to develop that second line with Crowder, Pistilli, and Perlini, or whoever Lake Erie sends back.
When you take a look at the schedule this week, I know the Komets are in second place in the North Division. This is another week where, we talked about it a few weeks ago, a week where you could make hay, a week where you could close the gap between you and Toledo. Taking a look, you got Evansville at home on Wednesday night, 7-1 against Evansville so far this year. You've got Elmira coming here on Friday, 1-1, including the 7-goal game earlier last week where they scored 5 goals in the first period. And then you've got Indianapolis at Indy on Saturday. That's a pretty good lineup coming down the stretch for the Komets. How important is it to, for this to be a 4, 5, 6 point week?
All right, this is going to shock you. I'm going to say it's not, and I'll tell you why. I think it's more important this week maybe to rest some guys and get them healthy for the following couple of weeks after that. Like Pistilli's got a little dinger going. I wouldn't be shocked if he sat Wednesday. I mean, but knowing Pistilli, he'll want to play. But, I mean, you've got guys who are legitimately have some injuries who are trying to play through them. Well, maybe this is the week where you sit them and don't. Because I don't believe finishing first is that critical.
Steve, I was going to play devil's advocate with you because I'm like, home ice versus, looking past the first round, the second round, home ice versus Toledo would be like
useless.
Paramount. No,
useless.
To me.
Look at the series between those two. It doesn't matter where they play. They could play at McMillan if there was still ice there.
That's regular season.
And it would be a one-goal game. It'll still be a one-goal game. It doesn't matter where they play.
I want home ice like you couldn't believe.
I understand that because you want to see those games.
Well, that's part of it, but also.
But as for who advances, I don't think it matters a bit. You think Jeff Lurg is any different in Fort Wayne versus Toledo, or Pat Nagel is any different in Fort Wayne versus Toledo? We've proven this year what the series has shown with those teams. It doesn't matter where they play. It's going to be a one-goal game decided in the final minute.
But if you have an opportunity to control it, or at least give it a shot to have home ice, I'd rather sleep in my own bed and play down the street. I know we've debated this year, like, and I would rather distractions.
I would rather go in healthy versus having the home ice.
See, I'm home ice and you're health.
I would rather go in healthy because we've seen it over the years where do the Komets win the majority of their great playoff games? They win them on the road.
That's Boucher.
Yeah.
Point.
Amen.
Point positive.
I mean, and Colin Chalk, where do those guys perform their best? They were always on the road. It wasn't at home. It was Colin Chalk and Colin Chin and all those guys. They won the great games on the road. There are a handful of games that they won at home. You could say Missouri Game 7. You could say Rockford Game 7. You could say San Diego Game 4, or Game 4 or Game 3. But you know what? they also won in Atlanta, which was the best game of that year. You know, they also won in Rockford to come back on that 3-1 deficit. They also won in Port Huron to come back from that 3-1 deficit. You know, the really money games have been played on the road.
All right. I'm still going to take home ice. I'm still going to take home ice.
I don't blame you because, I mean, I have the benefit. I get to see, no matter where it's at, all 7 games.
Right.
Not necessarily that's the case for 90% of the fans. I get that.
Oh,
but I also want the Komets. I don't want them thinking, oh, we got to get home ice. So we got to get home ice no matter what. Even if we lose 4 guys to injuries in these last 2 weeks, we got to get home ice. I think that's dead wrong.
Well, and you and I were talking about...
We saw that in '92 with the Komets
I'm not
and Kalamazoo.
Totally contradict myself, but you and I were talking about everybody's looking forward to Toledo versus the Komets in the second round. Don't overlook Kalamazoo at a 2-3 with the Komets because... those teams know each other really well, and even though the Komets are more talented, the more you know about them, the better you can game plan for them, the easier it is to close the talent gap if you're Kalamazoo.
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily look past Kalamazoo if that does end up being
I wouldn't either. I mean, no way.
Because, again, it's only 2 hours down the road.
Joel Martin almost beat the Komets in, 2009 all by himself, you know, and he could do it again. I mean, he's their ace. I mean, he's just amazing. But so is Rob Medor for Cincinnati, so pick your poison, you know, I mean...
Well, and Kalamazoo, if you throw out the first couple of months this season, they've played a lot better hockey once they've gotten everybody, of course, when they have all their guys play.
And they feel like they know how to play the Komets, too.
Right. So that could be dangerous, I guess.
I agree.
You know, I was helping you make your point that you want to be healthy, not necessarily for Toledo, but for Kalamazoo in the first round, because it's not a given.
Exactly. That's my point. I don't think you want to go in any way shorthanded against Kalamazoo or Cincinnati or Wheeling or whoever in that first round. Yes, you have the advantage. You've got the confidence. You've got the home ice. But the Komets showed last year, home ice didn't mean squat. They were the 8th seed, and they proved it.
I still want home ice. I still want home ice.
So, as usual, you're wrong.
Yes.
I'm going to suspend you for a week until you figure it out and pull your head out.
You know what? We'll find out in a month who's right and who's wrong. We will see. It'd be great to be both healthy and at home. So there you go. That's the key, right?
Well, duh.
Have everything. Have your cake and eat it too. Why not? If you're the Komets,
the last 2 times the Komets finished second, you know what they did? They won the cup.
Yeah. Well, history is a good indicator of the future, is what they say, right?
I don't know. There's 4 times before that where they finished second. They didn't get to the finals.
Well, let's forget all about that. Let's not worry about numbers then if it says things that are bad.
Right, exactly. You got to worry about health. That's what you worry about.
Selective memory.
You can control some of that.
That's true, but I like home ice. All right. We'll be talking about it next week here on Inside the Zone. For this week,
one of us will be talking here next week. I'll be. No, you're going to be on suspension.
I'm at the Final Four down in Indianapolis next week.
Oh, sure.
Which is pretty cool.
Now you'd say it, yeah.
But we'll be back talking Komets hockey.
Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll see about that.
It'll be probably better than what we were talking about this week. We'll see you next Monday.